From mantra 211, Brahmavid apnoti param, knower of Brahman attains the highest, three questions arise. First, who is Brahman? Second, how Brahman can be known? And third, what is the maximum that shall be attained by knowing Brahman? We discussed what is Brahman in last video, and today we shall discuss the method of knowing Brahman. As we have seen from definition that Brahman is truth, that is existence, which is eternal and non-dual. So, Brahman is without changing and everywhere. And as Brahman is everywhere, it is also within me. Hence, teaching of Upanishads are knowing the Brahman as I am Brahman. Mantra 211 says, Yo Ved Nihitam Guhayam Parme Vyoman. Know that Brahman existing in supreme unmanifested space of intellect. This unmanifested sacred space of intellect is covered by 5 sheaths. Here we will be applying 2 questions to know whether we have reached the goal or not. First question is whether it is changing or not, because self or Brahman is eternal and without any change. Second question is whether it is being observed or not, because Brahman or self cannot be observed. Mantra 211 says, Sova es Purso Anrasmaya. This body, which is outer covering of myself, is made up of food. This body remains changing from child to adult to old age, and we can also observe it. Hence, this body cannot be the self or Brahman. Then mantra 221 says, Anyontar Atma Pranamaya. Deeper to this body is the vital force. This vital force also remains changing because sometimes we are sick and sometimes healthy, and this vital force can also be observed. Hence, this vital force cannot be the self or Brahman. Then mantra 231 says, Anyontar Atma Manomaya. Deeper to this vital force is the mind. This mind also remains changing. Sometimes mind is irritated, sometimes happy, sometimes annoyed, sometimes peaceful. And this mind can also be observed. Hence, this mind cannot be the self or Brahman. Then mantra 241 says, Anyontar Atma Vigyanmaya. Deeper to this mind is the intellect, which decides and understands is called intellect. This intellect also remains changing, as sometimes it understands, sometimes not. Sometimes it decides, sometimes not. And it can also be observed. Hence, this intellect cannot be the self or Brahman. Then mantra 251 says, Anyontar Atma Anandamaya. Deeper to this intellect is the deep sleep, which is blank and without any experience. As sense organs, including mind, gets absorbed in vital force during the deep sleep, hence it cannot be experienced. This deep sleep also remains changing, as sometimes we are in deep sleep, sometimes not. And though it cannot be observed, yet we know that we were in deep sleep and could not observe anything. Hence this deep sleep cannot be the self or Brahman. Under the cover of these 5 sheaths of body, vital force, mind, intellect and deep sleep, there is the self or Brahman. To know that Brahman, under the sacred, unmanifested space of intellect, one famous story of 10 friends crossing the river is relevant here. The story is that the 10 friends, after crossing river, counted themselves to know whether all of them have safely crossed or not. They found that they were only 9. Each of them counted separately and found only 9 of them. They became very much worried about the 10th of them, whom they thought was drowned in the river. One wise man was crossing by who saw these worried friends and asked for their problem. After knowing their problem, the wise man asked them to count again. One of the friends counted again and stopped after 9. Then the wise man said that those 9 persons are there and the 10th is you yourself. All of them were counting only others, excluding himself. This story is relevant here as all the 5 sheaths covering the self are outside the self, which have been counted, but the self who is counting itself. तथा उपनिषद 211 says, Pranch khani betirat swambhu tasmat parang pasati na antaratman kasit dira pratigatmanam ekshat avrit chakshu amritatva michan. Supreme Self has designed the individual self in such a way that it sees only outward, not his inner self. Only a rare discriminating man desiring immortality sees the indwelling self by reversing the senses inward. This self, which is Brahman, is inside all of us, and only in his light all this universe is illuminated. When we apply those two questions, that whether it changes or not, we find that it did not change. I am the same person what I was at the time of birth. Only body, mind, and intellect have changed. I cannot also observe myself. Only this body, mind, intellect, and vital force can be observed. Hence, I am Brahman, Aham Brahmasmi.